Welcome back on WatchAdvisor on YouTube. It's Alexander speaking, your host. And today with me, joining me from Zurich is René Weber, Chief Analyst, Luxury Analyst of Bank Vontobel in Switzerland. René, a very warm welcome.
Welcome back to you, Alexander.
It's good to have you since we have tons of data that we're going to talk about. We do now have the final performance of the Swiss watch industry in 2020. We do have the performance of the Swiss watch industry in December, so the latest figures. We also have detailed figures about Richemont, about LVMH and the Swatch Group. And as we talked before, just for before taping this, we also have some very interesting figures about a shift, which now is really the biggest country in terms of absorbing the watches coming from Switzerland.
Don't forget to subscribe and to hit the bell to get our latest notifications.
René, may I ask you, start right away with a summary. What happened 2020? Just to remember our audience, René gave us an estimate of minus 25%. And René, I think it's better than you thought.
Yes. My estimate was in April, so we're in the middle of the crisis or start of the crisis. And now the Swiss watch exports were down by minus 22%. And I think it's quite interesting to see, if you look to all the different countries, there's nobody who has a plus with the exception of one, and that's China. China was up plus 20% in 2020. If you look just to December, it was a plus 45%. So that's really the only one where we can talk about pluses. All the other ones, like Hong Kong, they were down by 37%. Or we have also Singapore or Japan, they were down by 26%. Of course, all the European markets were down strongly. All of them did not have any Chinese tourists. So here in Europe, the best one was Italy with minus 21%, but then it goes up to Germany being minus 38%. Also UK is minus 25%. And we saw now in the last months in some countries an improvement, and overall every month since the worst we had in April, we saw an improvement. We are still down, even in December, we're still minus 2.5%, but at least we see a little bit of better numbers than we had before.
But it is a continuous recovery since the worst month, and this was April last year.
Yes, it's almost every month. So I think in April we had minus 81%, then was minus 68%, so really big numbers, and now we are just down to minus 2.5%. And of course, with the switch now having China being plus 20%, all the other ones being down, it's the first time in history that mainland China is by far the most important market. It makes now up 14% of total Swiss watch export. If you look back, Hong Kong was for more than 10 years the number one. They now have fallen back to number 3 position.
The new place to be if you buy watches in China is the island of Hainan, a little tiny island. We didn't know about too much before, but now it is really the place to be. And I think they also changed some laws concerning the limit of buying in the duty-free zone.
Yes. Hainan, to be honest, I've never been there, but I think must be an interesting place. If you compare Hainan, it's in the southeast of Hong Kong. It's roughly the same size as Taiwan, but it's 10 times bigger than Mallorca. So it's not a tiny island, it's rather a big island. And up to now, it was already...
For those who don't know, Mallorca, that's an island in the Mediterranean, belonging to Spain, just close to Ibiza. So if you are trying to figure out where it is.
It's a favorite place for here in Europe, going for having good vacations and having some sun. And they changed the law in the middle of the year. And since then, you can buy now much more expensive items. Up to the middle of the year was just possible to get items for roughly 500 Swiss franc, and now we talk about 14,000 Swiss franc, and therefore now you get all the expensive watches there. And as Hong Kong does not have any Chinese tourists anymore, really nothing anymore, it's minus 99.7% in all the months since March. Now people are traveling to Hainan, which is part of mainland China. And due to this new regulation, we have seen that duty-free sales in 2020 doubled. And I'm sure Hainan will become even more important place in 2021.
So it's the first time China is the biggest market for the Swiss watch industry. Interesting, yeah.
Yes. And I think when you look back, for example, 10 years ago, Hong Kong made 21% of Swiss watch export, and now we are down to 10%.
It's incredible. May I, after we have been looking back to all the figures, ask you for your estimate, you the expert, René Weber. What is your estimate for this year, 2021, and then 2022? What do you estimate? So I can challenge you again by comparing those figures later on this year.
And then I hear it again next year. No, we have in our estimate an increase of plus 15%. Of course, in the months April and May, we will see much higher growth than this 15%. But we still believe that, for example, low and mid-end will not increase strongly as the competition from smartwatch will continue. But as the Swiss watch industry was really locked down during April and May, no production has been done. I clearly believe that 2021 will be much of a better year. But of course, even if we have an increase of plus 15%, we are still behind 2019 and we are still behind the record levels we had before.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, positive development anyhow is due to come, and I keep my fingers crossed that we will see it very, very soon, of course. René, now let's go into the groups themselves. You have all the figures; they all have published their results. Can you just guide us through, starting with whom you want, and compare a little bit how they performed, and give us some insights, please?
Yeah, perhaps I just start with the first one, which came out just yesterday. It was a Swatch Group. Swatch Group was a little bit of a disappointment. It was even worse than expected. Organic sales decline in local currency was a minus 29%. It was an improvement second half. So first half was a minus 43% and second half was a minus 14%. But still, if we compare the minus 29% with Swiss watch export, which was a minus 22%, it shows that Swatch Group did not really catch up with Swiss watch export. The main reason here is that they have a strong position in low and mid-end, and low and mid-end was much weaker than the Swiss watch export data. So when we talk about retail prices of below 1,000 Swiss franc, they had a decline of 33 and 34%, whereas the high end, where retail price is roughly 8,000 Swiss franc, we had just had a decline of minus 20%. And as Swatch Group is quite strong in this low and mid end, yes, that had a negative impact.
But we can assume that the top brands of Swatch Group did perform well, as all the others did. It's really caused by the low end segment they are very strong in.
Yes, I think a brand like Omega, or especially a brand like Blanc, they have done really well, and they have not the same negative development as, for example, Swatch brand had.
Okay. So whom would you want to compare next?
Yeah, I think interesting was if we just look for the Christmas quarter, and that was the case for Richemont and Tiffany. Both of them had quite good numbers. So Tiffany did not have a decline anymore. They're 100% jewelry, or 90%. But Richemont had even an increase of 5% during the Christmas quarter. And that was mainly driven, of course, by Asia. That was also true for Tiffany. But it was also very much driven by the jewelry business. If you look to Richemont's detailed number, the jewelry business started already in the third quarter with positive growth, whereas the specialist watchmakers, which is mainly watches, they were still negative. And also the fourth quarter for specialist watchmaker was still negative. That shows that jewelry is clearly doing much better than watches does.
So jewelry, we are talking about jewelry pieces, but not necessarily watches not jewelry watches in terms of watches that are richly that are decorated with gemstones. It's really jewelry.
Yeah, it's really jewelry. Jewelry watches is part of the watch business. Of course, I think they also did probably better than most of the other ones. But here we just look at jewelry against watches.
I see. How about the specialist watchmakers? If we compare them from one big mother company to the other, Swatch, LVMH, and Richemont, how did they perform?
Yeah, you will see in the chart, there's a comparison between Swatch Group, Richemont, LVMH, but also Swiss Watch Export. You can see if you just look on watches, the Swatch Group was down by minus 29%. Richemont Specialist Watchmaker was down by minus 26%, but also LVMH Watch and Jewelry was down by minus 23%. This includes Bulgari. I think that really helped. But overall, you can see that all these names had a bigger decline than Swiss Watch Exports during 2020.
And now the big question is, of course, for all those calculating now, saying, okay, the entire figure is minus 22 and they all perform worse. Who is the big outperformer?
It's easy, I think. It's the clear number one brand here.
Let our audience guess. Who do you think? You got it? Okay. It's Rolex, of course.
Yes, exactly. I think Rolex says it's the number one. They clearly outperform with all these waiting lists. Yeah, it's the case, yes.
So Rolex really is keeping or making those figures look good. And of course, due to the fact that they are so attractive and so wanted, sales didn't. I don't think that they really had a big losses last year. They just continued, maybe losses due to the fact that they couldn't ship as much as they wanted, due to the fact that they had to close down their facilities during a certain period due to COVID. But the rest, I think their business must be comparable to the one they had last year.
Yeah, I think of course, they also have a decline, because if you close down the factory for 2 months, then you have at least a decline of close to 20%. I guess they could catch up a little bit, but still overall, I think even Rolex had a decline, but clearly not the same as the other ones.
But the general direction, as everything seems to move, is that the upper segments, the high-end segments, 3,000 Swiss francs export, that meaning 6,000 plus retail price, does good, is really performing or better performing. And the segments that are generally suffering are the lower-end segments. Those are mostly been affected by the development of the smartwatch. And the smartwatch seems to really give them a hard time, obviously.
Yeah, that was the case not just in 2020. It's now the case for almost 5 years since the start of the Apple Watch. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something which will continue also going forward.
I see. Do you have any? Do you have anything in kind of figures about precious materials? Is there any material outperforming? Is gold, yellow gold, red gold better than white gold? Do you have anything in that you could show us or tell us? That would be probably interesting, because all brands now are very much pushing rose gold and gold watches, yellow gold watches again, and I'm wondering if this is really the fact when we look at some of the figures.
Yeah, interestingly, I just have the figures for December. The steel watches, in terms of Swiss franc, they were the best performing. So when we just look on December, there was overall minus 2.2%. Steel watches was a plus 6.3%, whereas precious metal, they were minus 11%. So I think everything which works with steel, and you see a lot of steel chronographs, almost every brand brings the steel chronograph. I think, that's something which really works very well.
Interesting, very interesting. Well, now my last question would be, René, of course, lockdown means shops are closed, shopping malls are closed, e-commerce. Can you give us a little bit of an insight about how is the industry doing in e-commerce? How are they performing? Where are they actually?
Yeah. We just had a conference call yesterday with Swatch Group. They gave some details on their numbers, and it's clearly showing that the high-end watch brands still have a very small portion of their sales going in e-commerce. So Swatch Group as a total have 5.5% of their sales with online. It was the year before, just 2.5%. But Omega itself had less than 3%. But a Swatch brand had more than 30%. Also, Tissot, it was at 24%. And I think that's true for the whole Swiss watch industry. And there are a lot of brands who are not yet on online. You know that Rolex, Patek is not in there. Also at Swatch Group, Breguet and Blancpain is not online available yet. And I think also in the future, yes, we'll see an increase in online, but for the high end, and I think that's especially the case for our generation, we would like to go into a store, we would like to feel it. And so online important, yes, but it will not be more than 10, 20% for the high-end brands.
Do you think that when business comes back to normality, that the brands will continue to push their online business?
Yes, and I also believe that some brands will start. For example, Blancpain, I think it's an obvious one. They will start with online. And of course, it depends also very much on the market. So in China, it's much more common to go on e-commerce. And now with having a lot of people getting used also due to this situation, I think e-commerce will be clearly a part of the business in the future.
And then there is still us, WatchAdvisor. We are doing some really nice videos showing those watches on the wrist, etc. So we can be a bit of a help here.
Yeah, it's clearly support.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no.
Your channel is the best one, yes.
Oh. René, it was a big pleasure to have you. Is there anything else you still wanted to add? Did we forget? Did I forget to ask a question or?
No, I think you really put the most important points. For me, important is more what you think regarding the exhibitions we will see. I think everything is waiting for digital exhibitions in April, right?
They are planning something big, yeah, but it will be digital, and it will be interesting to see how this works out. For me, it will be the first time to experience everything by being it digital. I will try, of course, to get to Switzerland and to film those watches in real. This will be in April, and I think till April, situation will be better, and we will be able to travel again. It's not only the question if I can travel. The problem in the moment is that people, they don't let me go into their manufacturers and meet people because they have strictly rules saying, okay, no personnel, no visitors, no friends from outside may come into the companies to stay safe. I would do the same to protect my people, but I hope this will ease up and this will give me the possibility to touch those watches and to film them, and this will help. But we will see. And I am sure as soon as business comes back to what it was, we will have those shows back. Everybody wants to meet again. Everybody
Yes.
wants to talk again to each other, to look in the eyes, and we need to shake hands, or maybe not shake hands, at least say hello, or making this one. But I think we will come back very soon to normal business. Everybody's hungry. Whenever I have someone on the phone or by Zoom, everybody says, "Oh my goodness, one Zoom call." Yeah. Good. René, thank you very much once again. All the best for this.
Same to you.
And stay safe and sound, as we say. And yeah, let's talk. As soon as new interesting figures come together, we will be back with one of with one of our updates. And thanks for watching out there. Also to you, stay safe and sound, and see you back soon here on WatchAdvisor on YouTube. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.